Wayne Rooney's Street Striker was a cultural phenomenon. With only 3 series, it captured the imagination of young footballers up and down England. But how did it go from offering training camps to Brazil for the winner to being cancelled just 2 years later? The year was 2008 and England had failed to qualify for the Austria and Switzerland Euros, and Manchester United had dramatically beaten Chelsea in Moscow to win the Champions League after the famous John Terry slip. But in 2008, Coca-Cola, who launched Coke Zero in 2005, they wanted to promote it further to a UK audience. And how did they do this? They found one of the most popular footballers in the world, and especially in England, Wayne Rooney, and they built an entire series around him. This was maybe a slightly bit, but pretty much Wayne Rooney's peak. He was an absolute hero in England. With the national team, maybe not as much, but playing for Manchester United with Tevez and Ronaldo up front, he was an absolute superstar, and you could see that because his face was plastered on Nike adverts every single year. And being pretty much one of the only last street footballers left in England on his level, Coca-Cola and Sky thought they put a series around him, judging talent of young street footballers. Most of you will, but if you're too young enough to remember Wayne Rooney's prime, he was just pure energy on the pitch. That's why he probably finished his career so young, because everything he did 100%, and it just looked like he was playing on the concrete pitches in Liverpool where he grew up. So the format was Wayne Rooney and Andy Ansah, who was a bit of a journeyman in the lower leagues of football, and also presented the Cristiano Ronaldo science test where they tested all of his natural ability. They would judge young footballers up and down the country, basically doing freestyle skills in the Stockport area, doing it on the streets, doing it near the canals, and basically just making it as grounded and as humble as possible. In the first 2 series, only 24 players competed and there's only 10 episodes. However, it just took, especially my generation, because I was about 10 years old when this came out, it just took us by absolute surprise. I mean, Wayne Rooney is not a charismatic guy. Andy Ansah clearly carried the presenting of that show, and to be fair, Wayne Rooney, he was only about mid-20s at the time, but he was not media trained, he could not speak well on camera, and that's probably taken him to his age nowadays. He's still not great on camera. However, he was just a superstar at the time, and all of us young boys and girls watching him, it was just so cool to see a Premier League footballer, especially at his level, judging and also doing skills on the street. Because the best thing about Street Striker, in my opinion, is that Wayne Rooney always tried to do the tasks. And I think nowadays, when kids have grown up with, say, the F2 freestylers, who are fantastic, I mean, they're so skillful. However, it clearly took them many takes to do all of their skills, and it makes them look perfect. However, with Wayne Rooney, when you were doing it, you could see him stumbling, you could see him missing some of the shots sometimes, you could see him really struggling with it. And it showed that despite he was just fantastic, it probably gave a lot of kids like myself just the hope that he's not perfect, you can still be a professional footballer, even if you make mistakes like him. But some of the best challenges in it were probably dropping the ball from the tower block where you'd have to control it and then hit it into a skip, going down the canal and dribbling in and out of tyres getting thrown at you, and then hitting it into a canal boat, or being in an abandoned swimming pool where balls would be fed down through a tube to you and you'd have to control it and hit it into a container which was on wheels, so you had to always be aware where it was. And I think it also was a positive for young footballers who were looking to get into the pro scene, because 2 out of the 3 winners actually had trials at professional clubs, and the second winner actually played on for their professional club. So the first winner was Travis Beckford, the younger brother of Jermaine Beckford, the ex-Leeds legend, and he won it in 2009, and he won a trip to a Brazil training camp, and he also had a trial at Leeds before he got into a bit of trouble, and I think it stopped his footballing career, especially with injuries. Then in the second series, you had Ashley Goddard, who won it, and she managed to get a 4-year scholarship in America because of the TV show, and then she actually played for Crystal Palace Ladies, and then unfortunately she had a stroke recently where I think she's trying to get a footballing career back on track. And in the third series, which we'll lead on to later, where the budget got cut, Jack Eric got a trip to Wales and performed in front of a Swansea crowd at half-time, so obviously he probably got the short end of the stick there. However, he still got a nice day out for it. But I think it probably was the era of reality TV shows, because now with, say, like Love Island or whatever, you need to have 1 million followers to get on that show, and you need to have a social presence, and that's with most of the shows nowadays, because they want someone who they can promote off the back of it and sell products and everything like that. Whereas with Wayne Rooney Street Striker, it really felt like you could rock up to the audition, and if you were good enough, you were going to get a go on the show. And that was just such the best thing about it, because speaking purely for myself, me and my mate who used to watch it all the time, we would go outside, find a skip, try and hit balls into it, go on the pitch, try and do these challenges that you're seeing on the TV, and you really felt like if you could perfect them, then one day Wayne Rooney might come down I mean, why would he come to Leeds for me? But he might come down your local park and go, yeah, you're on the show, and then you might get a trial elsewhere. Obviously, it never happened. But it was that hope that you got as a 10-year-old. The show was also very ahead of its time in terms of mixing with genders, because obviously it's a boring topic nowadays, but the hot topic of people moaning about women's football. And at this point it was mixed genders in the competition. Obviously in the second series a woman won it, and as far as I knew at the time, no one cared. No one batted an eye. Sue Smith, the ex-England legend for the women's team, was a presenter and a bit of a guest host during it. And to think about it, no one cared. It was just fun to see these players, and they were judged not on what colour they were, not on what gender they were. It was just judged purely on the footballing ability. And I think the show, it was a purposeful choice to get more girls into football, because even Rooney said it's great having so many girls made it on. It just shows how strong women's football and girls football is at the moment. It's great to see so many female players with such strong football talent. And he said, I hope the bigger contingent of girls on the show inspires more to get out there and play football. And it's just a win-win scenario. But I think it just does bring people back to a time where football felt a lot more grounded, a lot more humble. Of course it's going the way it is now, and it was corporate back in the 2000s, but obviously it's mega corporate nowadays. But it did feel to the time where you go with your mates and go down the local park, have a go in the football cages and stuff. And nowadays, a lot of people, it's a lot more organised football. And don't get me wrong, we all play organised football at one point, but I feel with youth players nowadays, it's a lot more. I mean, you're basically a celebrity at 15, 16 years old. And it is interesting when you see a legend like Wayne Rooney, who said at the time, everything I learned came from small pitches. The tactical side of things comes later, but 95% of my game is from those days playing as a kid. And also Michael Ballack recently on a podcast with Simon Jordan said that he feels especially youth players are lacking at that street football that you learn as a kid, because there's no rules, you have to learn it as you come along. You get tougher playing it, and I think this show in the 2000s by Wayne Rooney just encapsulated that. But I think it'd just be cool to see it nowadays, because obviously so many players are just PR trained nowadays, and the brand is so important. There wasn't really social media as much back then, so no one really cared. But imagine if you had a series of Trent Alexander-Arnold trying to scout out the best young Scouse lads in the area, or someone like Eze, who's notoriously been classed as a street footballer for Crystal Palace. If he goes to down in South London, I mean, maybe he's not big enough yet, but if he does a similar series to that and finds lads in the cages in South London, I mean, there's been so many series, especially on BT Sports, that has been made about just the street football scene in South London, so I'm surprised no one's capitalising on it. And if you didn't know, the phrase unbelievable techers,
they're coming with unbelievable techers,
was actually coined by Andy Ansah in that series, apparently. I found out when researching it, but apparently he said it so many times in the series, and I mean, it just seems like it's been around for ages. But I recommend anyone going back to watch it, or watch it for the first time, because it gives 2000s nostalgia. You've got the bootcut jeans, you've got the T90 trainers, you've got the V-neck vest, you got all of the terrible fashion choices that we all used to wear in the 2000s. And like I say, no one batted an eye about it, but it's horrible looking back. But it all came to an end when Wayne Rooney got dropped by Coca-Cola. He had about a 600 grand deal at the time with them. And it was after Man United beat West Ham, and he went on a bit of a tirade in front of the cameras after he scored, using a few swear words, which I personally don't care about, but there are a lot of people who do apparently. And the show was no more, which was a complete shame, because it only went on for about 2 years. And in my opinion, something like that has not been topped. I think there's great content on YouTube similar to that. However, on terrestrial TV, or just any TV at all, there's nothing like it. And I can't believe people aren't doing it already, because Soccer AM used to do stuff before it got cancelled similar to that, I think. And in my opinion, it was just a time where people just enjoyed football for what it was. Like I've said in previous videos, people now are so fixated on arguing with each other, and it is fantastic for a bit, but sometimes remember that football's about enjoying it. And at the end of the day, watching Wayne Rooney kick a ball into the skip gives me so much more enjoyment than watching some of these idiots online argue about who's better, Saka or Foden. But thanks for watching. If you watch Wayne Rooney Street Striker, let me know what your favourite episodes, skills were in it. I mean, it's fantastic. I'm sure I've got people who watched it, but if you like the video, that'd be great. If you could leave a comment, fantastic. And if you could subscribe to the channel, really help me out. But thanks for watching.